Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Welcome to episode 238 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. With the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dias for all things HBCU sports, institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host. Today we have again in the studio AD Drew, Professor Drew, and Charles Bishop, Professor Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Gentlemen, Charles, how you doing today?
Doing well, Doc. A lot of great basketball this past weekend. Some lively gymnasiums, a lot of news to get to today. So it's been a good day.
Yeah, it's good to have y'all. You had a little bit of that FAMU Jackson State. We figured what was going to happen on the women's side. Maybe not so much on the men's side. It's a little interesting. With all that being said, Professor Drew, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine, my brother. I don't know about the weather in the Houston area, but I'm glad here in South Georgia that the weather has broken this week. We finally got a weekend where it was above 50 degrees. It seems like every weekend since we've come into this year, it's been cold, wet, whatever. So I'm glad that the weather broke, and hopefully it is here. Well, we know we got one more cold spell coming, but I'm hoping it's here to pretty much stay, Doc, as we get ready to get into the final stretch of basketball.
Well, it's the South. We run out of cold weather in March, so,
I do like that. I'm glad March is around the corner. Speaking of running out of that cold weather, I'm not the biggest guy in terms of the cold weather, even though I know I'm a little ice cold myself. But that's a different thing. For those who understand that a little bit.
See, I wasn't even going there with that reference, but you had to throw it in there, man.
I had to throw it in there. You gave it to me on the silver platter.
I threw that was a softball. That was a 12-6 softball pitch right there.
Yes, indeed. I appreciate that you lobbing that up there. Speaking of softball and baseball, it's getting underway. I saw with FAMU. Got a victory. Had 3 out of 4 there, but they snuck out a victory. And some other teams are playing in there. Bethune-Cookman representing the Swac got a softball victory as well. So we got some baseball coming around the corner. Should be interesting. A couple of matches coming up there. And then, as you know, HBCU champion is coming up in terms of small division. We're moving forward in terms of developing what that will look like. So we'll have more news in the interview before too long to give you some really up-to-date news out there. And I know you kind of snuck that out there last week. I appreciate you getting that information out there for the people. Before I go back to you all and get some news of the day in this first quarter, if you would, I want to give a shout out. Let me start out with the listeners up here joining us today. We got Lawrence D. White. George Suggs is in the building. Lawrence says from Big D on the line as he's checking out. He might sure that everybody knows he's representing Prairie View A&M. So he says PVMU, Go Panthers. Willie Alex Hine, Kate Johnson, as she always in here, supporting us, getting us going. Chuck Hunt, Noel Price is present, checking him off the roll as he's ready to go. He says evening lab, and from professors as we continue to get it done. Juan C. Hill, what's up, Doc? I'm good. Chad Cooper, good evening from Baton Rouge. He's in the building. Say great news for Fisk University creating a gymnastics program. That is exciting news out there. I see you stuck in there. Grambling State having NASCAR with the G on it in the race. That's pretty nice when you look at that car. That is great marketing in terms of what that looks like. No doubt about it. Who else we got in here before we get to you? G-Boom Holly says, good evening, lab rats. Oh, man. He said we're going to experiment today. Howdy. Lonnie is in Aggie land. Howdy. I see Karen Griffin. I'm here in the lab. Gerald Wayne Joseph. That's brother Joseph. Great show as always. Appreciate you. We plan to make it great for everybody. Chuck Hunt wants to get out here with these numbers. You know, this is the business sport. He says Hugh Jackson is reportedly getting $1.6 million contract as Grambling head football coach. It has to be approved by the board. $400,000. I knew about the $400,000, and I thought it was going to be 4 years, so $1.6 million. I expect that it will get approved in terms of the range, which is fascinating. I know HBCU Sports got that news out there. Jamie Walker says, good evening from Atlanta. Hashtag Aggie Pride. Noel Price said, I'm a female. You said he. Did I say he? I'm sorry. Noel, certainly no disrespect there. Madam Price, we'll do it like that. BJ Jones says, what's up? Oh, we got BJ Jones in the building. Oh, my goodness. It's going to be on and popping now. With that being said, let me get back to you, Charles. What news do you want to talk about today? What do you got on your mind?
Well, I think you stole the thunder a little bit. We got some contract news. I think it's reported that Hugh Jackson has been is going to be getting $1.6 million from Grambling over 4 years. It has to be approved by the University of Louisiana board. So very interesting with regards to Hugh Jackson and Grambling. Gee, man, they doing it big. 400K.
Yeah, they decided they're going to get back in the football business, and they decided to go all in. But if you think about it, that's not too far off the pace what they were paving the previous coach, over $350,000 when you added everything in. Obviously, that was after you won a Black College National Champion, had a lot of success. Then you think about just the price going up. You have several coaches in the 300 number. People may have forgot when the deal came out and numbers came out in terms of Tennessee State's Eddie George. He was making $400,000, and obviously Coach Hugh Jackson was the offensive coordinator, so he had some ideas of what that looks like, and probably came to the table thinking that's the rate of the business going on. Par for the course. So it doesn't surprise you too much there, but that is a fascinating. When my understanding, when you look at Prairie View, they might have went in the other direction in terms of what they decided to pay a head coach. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this turns and how people decide to go about the business. Obviously, if he gets it going, the return on the business is going to be there. Question I have is Deion's eyes lighting up. You know, what does that mean for Jackson State over there? Not to say that they don't have the ability to pay the money, nor right now the terms in the return on investment. They probably would take that in the, hiccup if it was just $400,000. Like, oh yeah, we'll figure that out. We'll figure it out. That's the deal. That's all you need. Cool. Let's keep it rolling. All right, Professor Drew, what do you think, Joe?
Oh, well, I think they're going to pass the plate around the church one more time. We got the building fund. We got the Sunday school fund. We got whatever fund you need to call it. We're going to just call it the Coach Prime Fund. But before I get into my news of the day, I want to shout out your co-host, the person who's chair. I'm keeping warm today. Michael Washington being recognized by his company as part of Black History Month, or Kima. I hope I said that correctly, but and this is a quote from Mike. I am proud that our team celebrated Black History Month as well as the various cultures in our society. And that was a quote from Michael Washington, director of Industrial Safety America. So Mike, just let me keep your seat warm. I could do good math. But I can't do that engineering stuff that you do, my brother. So I'm gonna let you have that portion of it. Just give me an economic equation, and I might be able to help you out there, my brother. But you keep the rest of that stuff to yourself. But no, congratulations there, though, Mike. Seriously,
no doubt. Congrats.
Yeah, congrats, Mike. You know, I purposely didn't do my own assignment as we normally do because I was hoping you shout that out, but I can't tease him. I guess he actually is doing real work when we feed that on the table. So kudos to Mike. I did get to talk to him a little earlier. He is traveling, continue to take care of us. Good point, and I'm glad you put that out there. Charles, back to you, Professor Bishop. What you got?
Yeah, let's take a look at this. This comes to us from HBCU Game Day. Jackson State signs Ashley Robinson to an extension. Jackson State University President Thomas K. Hudson announced a contract extension of Vice President and Athletic Director Ashley Robinson through 2026. And this is a quote from President Hudson. Ashley Robinson has been a tremendous asset to Jackson State University, and his innovative ideas and vision for the division of athletics aligns with our plans to elevate the student-athlete experience. I look forward to working with him for many more seasons to come. So a quick quote from Ashley here. It's always been a dream of mine to return to my hometown and invest in the city that gave so much to me. It's been an honor to do important work at Jackson State University. I'd like to thank President Hudson for his leadership, and thank you to the many Jackson State alumni and fans that support our program and our students throughout the year. So huge kudos to my guy, Ashley Robinson, for the contract extension through 2026.
Man, I guess I can put my checkbook back in my pocket.
Tempo.
Kudos, man. I need to call him though. Yeah, I think he owed me some funds. I need to go and reinvest since he got the new deal. I thought people were upset with him, wanted to run him out. I guess, you know, some of the folks, maybe that was the Tennessee State folks. My fault. Wrong state. Professor Drew, you got some thoughts?
No, congratulations, brother. Go get that change, man. Go get that change. But you know, it is coming up at the end of basketball season, and there's nothing like the CIAA basketball tournament. And probably ironic timing or probably playing timing with this, but the CIAA reaches a multi-year agreement with Coca-Cola to renew corporate partnership. Coca-Cola announced a multi-year partnership with the CIAA. This agreement extends Coca-Cola commitment as the official beverage partner of the CIAA and preserves a relationship that has existed for over, here's the number, y'all, 50 years. Making it one of the conference's longest running partnerships. Statement from CIAA Commissioner Jackie McWilliams: "We are thrilled to continue our partnership with Coca-Cola Company, a partnership that extends over 50 years. As one of our longest running partnerships, the Coca-Cola Company has made a commitment annually to provide access and opportunity to our conference member institutions, student athletes, and the HBCU community through scholarships, career opportunities, and the overall enhancement of our championship experience." So, you know, that's just good news. Great timing on the cusp of the CIAA tournament as CIAA enters the last week of basketball competition.
Man, big news. 50 years, significant. When we talk about that, though, I want to go a little bit off the radar and just get your thoughts on this before we go in this first break. Also was out there talking about Art Briles, reported close to joining Grambling staff for HBCU Game Day. Any thoughts, starting with you, Charles, in terms of this move? Some people would see it as controversy. Others would say that, you know, folks need an opportunity. So it's interesting to see that this is even on the table. Obviously, in terms of his coaching ability, coming from the high school, getting all the way to Baylor and what he's been able to achieve at that level, know he's significant in terms of what he can do X and O's. What are your general thoughts in terms of this maybe being a possibility, Charles?
I mean, there's no doubt about it. From an X and O standpoint, he's been one of the best to do it, especially when you take a look at the way he resurrected that Baylor program. But there are some ethical considerations that you have to look at with the hiring of Art Briles. There were some very noticeable things that went on under his nose, if you will, at Baylor that I think you can't overlook. So it just depends on where you kind of fall in regards to we want to see Grambling get back in the business of, being Grambling football, but at what cost? And I think that's concerning, at least, but there's no doubting his football acumen. He's one of the best in the business, and for them to bring him into Grambling, that's a huge coup, not only for the Grambling football program, but raising up the bar, if you will, in terms of coaching in the Swac in general.
Man, you sound like it's a done deal. What you know, Charles? Professor Drew, what are your thoughts on this?
Kind of along the same lines as Charles, but I'm gonna throw a different spin on it. First of all, there are certain programs when it comes to HBCU college football that have to be good for the entire HBCU sport of football to be good. And Grambling is one of those programs that needs to be good and competitive. So going out and getting a talent like him definitely helps raise and elevate, gets Grambling back to that competitive nature. But there are those concerns. But what are HBCU's model? We are that school, that second chance school, that school that gives people the opportunity to go to school who would not otherwise have the opportunity to go to school, because we have different admission standards. I won't say lower, I won't say anything, but we have different. We take those students, those marginal students, and turn them into young men or young ladies. So why not continue with that HBCU mindset and take this coach who may have done some things that he may not be proud of and give him an opportunity to right himself and to go on and better himself and better that university at the same time. Plus, may open up that Texas market for Grambling also, which, football in the state of Texas, anytime you get some talent out of Texas, it's going to be good for your program.
Yeah, you talk about Grambling in Dallas area. They live in Texas, but
Grambling in Dallas.
Going further, you can talk about going further in Texas, to your point.
Yes.
Particularly when you get into some of those smaller cities where there's hidden talent in there. That could
East
be
Texas.
scary if you playing against Grambling. It'll be fascinating. Some of the comments that are coming in here, some folks obviously are talking about their concerns about it. It'll be interesting to see what level that comes to ultimately. What's going to be fascinating to me is, from my perspective, I would guess they probably leaked this out there. We talked about leaks last week. I'm sure they leaked this out there to see, what way people would move before they made the move. So I want to be clear here. He has not been hired yet. And in terms of that, and remain seen if he will be hired. But it'll be fascinating to me is that you haven't really heard anything mainstream. But if it comes official, it'll be fascinating to see where it goes in terms of what we often call the mainstream media, how late they get in the game and what direction they will take it, or if they would. And so that is kind of the dynamics that's fascinating to me, to see what the outside frameworks often will say about this, which is huge, along with what people are saying in general here. So fascinating. With that, let's get into our first break. We'll be back in the second quarter. Today, I'm going to give you the poll. I've been working on the poll, but I've been saving it. Week 7, so I've been keeping up with it. We just haven't put it on the show. It's time to broadcast the top 10 poll rankings, men's and women. When I say 10, it's actually top 5 for men, top 5 for women. So 10 teams are in the top 5. And we'll get a chance to tell you what those after this break. And then we'll get into some action, see what your thoughts were in terms of the basketball this week before we move on to next week. With that, we'll be right back after this break.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports
Tell everybody
Network.
they can follow their dreams.
Oh, that spin class was brutal. Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat. Ooh, yeah, that's nice.
Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on?
Sure, it's wireless.
Pick something we all like. Okay, hold on.
What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password? Buick Envision 2021.
Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable.
That's a really tight spot.
Don't worry, I used to hate parallel parking.
Me too.
Hey,
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you. All of you.
Let's get back to getting ticks instead of watching flicks. Before we can safely get out there, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your crew.
Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working.
Never not working. Never ever not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield, never not working.
The top HBCU programs in the nation come to Montgomery, Alabama's Riverwalk Stadium this May 11th through 14th for the Black College World Series. The best Black college baseball teams in the NCAA Division II and the NAIA will battle for Black baseball's ultimate prize. Games will be streamed live at www.mybcsn.net. Tickets are available now online at www.blackcollegechampionships.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. On the show now is Professor Drew and Professor Bishop. Let's get into my top 5 rankings. I'm going to tell you those are the receiving votes, talk about those who dropped out, and get into the top 5. This is week number 7. Yes, I know I hadn't given you these updates in a while, but it's time for y'all to understand what's going on. We're past the midterm mark. Y'all gave the grades a couple of weeks ago. Now it's time to see who is the best of the best week in and week out. Texas Southern Tigers, this is the women that we're going with now. Texas Southern Tigers, 8-12, 8-5. They've kind of played some good basketball. They have 11 points behind that Prairie View and Panthers. Buried them for dead for a while, but they've kind of rebounded, 11-13, 8-5, 14 points. They have Alabama State Hornets, 10-12, 9-4 with 19 points. North Carolina A&T Aggies, 12-12, 9-5. They've rebounded and have a nice little run over the last couple of games. Dropping out this week, the Southern Jaguars, 10-14, 8-5. They're rolling, but they've lost 2 straight, 3 of the last 4-5 games. So they've kind of hit a bump in the road after they were soaring early in the season. Bringing us to the top 5. Told you Southern dropped out, so who jumped in? It actually comes in at number 5. Morgan State Bears, 12-6, 6-2, 57 points. They were not ranked. Bringing us to number 4, Coppin State Eagles, 13-9, 7-2. They were previously ranked 3 last week, so they do drop as they split this weekend, 6-9 points, bringing us to number 3, Howard Bison. Bison women are rolling over a stretch, winning several games. They're 13-8, 7-2, 81 points. Previously ranked 4, so they jump up a spot. Bring us to number 2, Norfolk State Spartans sit at 12-8, 8-1 in conference play, 83 points. Sitting at the 2 spot, as you know, they continue to sit there. Number 1, Jackson State Tigers continue the number 1 ranking dominance in week number 7. Jackson State Tigers are 15-6, 13-0, 10 first place votes. Professor Drew and Brian did a phenomenal job on the show on Sunday. They talked about just how dominance was. They didn't just look at this year. They went back and talked about how many games they've won, how far back they've won, and just how dominant they've been. And when you consider that, this is really a nice stretch in terms of that. I'm going to stick with Professor Drew since they kind of put in some of those numbers and let him maybe add some of that. More than that, I want to get his thoughts on the poll, and then we'll go to Charles, see what he thinks as well.
The word we used on the show on Sunday was UConn-esque. What Jackson State has done in the Rogan Williams era is kind of rival to what UConn has done in their various conferences. And I believe the number is 3, Charles. They've lost 3 conference games since they have become a duo there at Jackson State. This is their 3rd year at Jackson State together. So 3 conference games in 3 years is pretty doggone good, you know.
I will say.
Obviously, they are the hands down the number one team. They're the unanimous number one team in anybody's HBCU polls when it comes to the women. So the biggest question that you have for Jackson State this year is, can they go and sweep through not only the regular season but the tournament, which would put them with a 21 game winning streak going into the NCAAs if they were to sweep both the regular season and the tournament. So that's that. But get into the poll, Doc. The BCSN computer rankings, and I think your poll went through yesterday. Our computer rankings went through Sunday, so they do not take into account Monday night's games. We had Jackson State 1, Coppin 2, Howard 3, Norfolk 4, Morgan 5, and our only team that we had in the hunt was North Carolina A&T. So that was ours. So we had the same top 5 as you, Doc. We just had it in a different order. But I think our first out was different than your first out. But given Monday night's results, Doc, I kind of agree with your polls, though.
Let me ask this question, AJ. So how does A&T 9-5 compare to the Coppin, Howard, and Norfolk states in terms of the basketball that they're playing in the Big South now versus what we see in the MEAC? I mean, in terms of a power ranking, if you will, between the two conferences.
Honestly, Charles, from what I've seen, the Big South is really not, on the women's side, is not that much higher than the MEAC as far as a conference rating. And the one thing you have to keep in mind with those other 4 teams, Coppin, Howard, Norfolk, and Morgan, outside their proximity, they've all beat up on each other. They've taken care of their business against everyone else in the MEAC, but those 1s and 2s that you see in that second column of all those teams or to each other. So, which shows the parity among those top teams. You know, the only other team in the MEAC who's really above 500 and doing anything is South Carolina State. And, you know, I don't see South Carolina State being able to challenge either one of these teams when it's all said and done.
Sure. To your point, and when you stop and take a look at the Misha Williams Holiday and Deja Rogan era at Jackson State, it'll go down as something legendary. And now I think I've seen this team tested in every way they could be tested. They Southern game, I think that game was close in the fourth quarter, and you saw that resilience, you saw that moxie. They played heady basketball down the stretch, and they were able to take what was a close game and turn it into a 6 to 8 point spread. And I think that was sort of the margin of victory in that game. So I've seen, Jackson State take teams' best punches, and they're still coming out ahead, in sometimes by double-digit points. I think this past, Monday, I watched that game and was taking a look at it. And I think Coach Reed said it today, that they didn't have the energy that she expects for them to have, but they still won by 20 points. So, they're going to be a very tough out, I think, in the Swac tournament. I think their heads and tails between they and maybe the second, third place team in the Swac. But, the question becomes now, if they take care of business in the Swac tournament, can they get to the NCAA? Can they get to the tournament and win a game? Which will be very interesting, because I think they have the rebounding acumen. And what I've always been curious about with this team is, is that the guard play, Deja Rogan, can they knock down some 3-pointers, where they can sustain runs and things of that nature. So I think I see that a little bit more now with this team. And I do think that they can actually get into the tournament and probably get one in.
Yeah. In order for them to do that, Charles, in my opinion, they've got to get to a 14 or higher as far as the seed.
Sure.
If they put them as a 15 or a 16 seed,
that's too tough.
Put the HBCU teams, then no, I can't see them realistically winning a game. But if they get to a 14 or even a 13 seed, those are those teams that you see pull those upsets, those day one upsets, And who knows if they They get to a 14, get that day one upset, which won't be an upset for us, but it will be an upset for them. And whoever that matchup that they get day two, if there's another lower seed that happens to win also on day one, we could possibly see a Sweet 16 team out of Jackson State with the right seed and the right events happening in the NCAA tournament.
So the question becomes, do you think the Swac will have enough respect, or this Jackson State team will have enough respect to get a 14 seed?
The only thing that I see that's going to hold them back, and I'll close it out on this, is the conference rating. While Jackson State themselves are a good team and is getting some attention in the different power rankings, the conference rating itself is still not there. At best, Jackson State might sneak in as the last 14 seed. Realistically, I think they'll be a 15 this year instead of a 16.
Man, great points by both of you all. Excellent dialogue, and I'd have to agree. So we're going to leave it right there. First half of the show will come back after this break in the third quarter, and we'll give you the top five for the men. Stick with us. We'll be right back to see who's in the top five, and it's a tight race between the teams at the top. So stick with us. Let me hear what your thoughts are in terms of the top five. This is Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Professor Bishop, Professor Drew. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
The top HBCU programs in the nation come to Montgomery, Alabama's Riverwalk Stadium this May 11th through 14th for the Black College World Series. The best Black college baseball teams in the NCAA Division II and the NAIA will battle for Black baseball's ultimate prize. Games will be streamed live at www.mybcsn.net. Tickets are available now online at www.blackcollegechampionships.com.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Itchy, squirmy, scratchy, family not getting clean? Get Charmin Ultra Strong. Go get 'em! It just cleans better. With a diamond weave texture, your family can use less while still getting clean.
Goodbye, itchy squirm.
Hello, cream bottom.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We're here for the third quarter. Let's get it done. We have Professor Bishop, Professor Drew. Time for the men's top five, week 7. Receiving votes, South Carolina State Bulldogs 13-12, 5-4 with 13 points. Outside of the top 5, Florida A&M Rattlers 10-14, 8-5, 21 points. Outside the top 5, as well as Grambling State Tigers 10-15, 8-5, 28 points. That Texas road trip was not friendly to the Louisiana schools on the women's side, not as friendly on the men's side, but Southern did make a statement before they got out of town. And so they're pretty happy. We'll see what that means in terms of the top 5. Howard Bison sit at 13-10, 6-3. They won 5 straight, but they're outside of the top 5. Dropping out this week, Grambling State Tigers that we just talked about. They took 2 losses in Texas on the men's side. Tough ones, though. They were right in those games. Coming down the stretch, 10-15, 8-5. FAMU Rattlers also had 2 tough losses, One of them, you probably knew that would have been a tough matchup, but surprised by Jackson State, surprised a lot of folks. Now you can say Jackson State is rolling a little bit quietly as kept. FAMU Rally sitting 10-13, 8-4. Let's get in our top 5. Alcorn State Braves, they enter back into the top 5 after the big win, as they got it done, 10-15, 9-4, 51 points. At number 4, Texas Southern Tigers, 11-11, 9-4. They were winning, 8 straight games before they lost Monday night at home, surprising a lot of folks, just the way they lost. Dominated, except for maybe early in that matchup. Credits to Southern getting it done and making a statement. That's 2 they've got from Texas Southern, so they own the sweep. 68 points. They dropped from the 3 spot because of their loss after having a big win on Saturday on NBA TV against Grambling. At number 3, North Carolina Central Eagles. Coach Newton has just continued to get it done. 13-11, 6-2 quiet. They got the big win over Norfolk State, and then they've been rolling a little bit. Had a hiccup in that game, ESPNU, where the game was stopped because the rim was cracked in that game. Not the broken glass, but a cracked rim. Took them some time to get it done, but they get it back up there, and they find a way to hold on against Coppin State late in that game. 79 points were not ranked, so they jump into the top 5. At number 2, Southern Jaguars. We talked a little bit about the big win they had over Texas Southern. They had a tough loss on Saturday to Prairie View. So Prairie View's find a way to rally a little bit and looking much better than they were. Can they get it going after starting off slow? Be interesting to see. Credit to them as they do get the win against Southern. But Southern is number 2, 15-10, 10-3, 2 first place votes, 82 points. But number 1, Norfolk State Spartans, clearly number 1 in a lot of folks. 17-5, 8-1, 8 first place votes, 98 points. Remain at number 1. They continue to get it done. Wouldn't be surprised if they continue to go this way, that they take away those votes from Southern. I think the matchups over the weekend with Texas Southern being a top 5 team allowed them to get a couple of points, as some people may look at the Swac a little deeper, if not stronger than the MEAC. But MEAC has the top of the charts right now with Norfolk State Spartans at 17-5, 8-1, as they are number 1, continue to be number 1, and week number 7. Let me start with you, Professor Bishop. What do you think on the top 5 of the men's side?
I was really curious to see who was going to be number 1 between Norfolk State and Southern. And I have to give it to Norfolk State, 17-5, but they have really cleaned up at the house. They're 8-0 at home, 6-5 away. But, it's about taking care of home court. I can't say enough about that. Southern last night, a huge win over Texas Southern, Road Warrior win last night to take control of the Swac. But, it's just so very interesting watching Southern. They don't have a top 10 scorer, but they just do so many things right, more than anything. They turn you over a lot. I think Texas Southern had 19 turnovers, and I think Southern is ranked nationally in terms of turnover margin, things of that nature. And then Southern jacks up threes. I thought Mississippi Valley jacks up threes. Southern is I think has 30 more 3-point attempts than Mississippi Valley, 190 on the season thus far. So, and when they're hitting from the 3-point land, they're real tough to stop. They'll shoot 37% from 3-point land.
Yeah, when they got it going, they get tough. The volumes of those 3, unless you're hitting some yourself, it can put you in a hole and change the whole directory you play the game. And then they play defense. They play really strong defense. And you see that across the Swac now, where the defense and just the athleticism, those tall wings, even taller guards, it is just physical out there when you see these teams playing. So when they are able to get it going, it's fascinating. Great basketball to watch and what I see. It would be nice to see that Norfolk State Southern in terms of MEAC matchup mid-season or something like that. It would just really be there. Before we get into that, let me go to Professor Drew and let me know your thoughts on the top 5. Obviously, you all do the computer rankings. Where was the difference there?
Well, first of all, the computer rankings that we had once again came out on Sunday, and a couple of these teams that we had in our top 5 suffered losses on Monday. But I'll go back over the rankings from Sunday, starting with number 1, Norfolk State, followed by Texas Southern, then Southern. Obviously, we know what happened in that game right there. Alcorn, number 4, South Carolina State, number 5, North Carolina Central, and Howard just outside of our top 5. So, first of all, when you look at Norfolk State, they played a couple of, and I hate to use the word cupcakes, but they played a couple of gibby games at the beginning of the season to get themselves on a roll and to build their confidence before they were going into the MEAC season. They did a good job, especially when they got in against those P5 schools and those other mid-major schools. Southern, Texas Southern, Alcorn, FAM, Jackson State, Prairie View, whoever in their SWAC. It will not surprise me if any of those teams who get into the tournament in the SWAC win the tournament. I will not be surprised as a basketball
serious
fan.
parity.
Yeah, serious parity.
Yeah. It goes 10 deep.
Yeah, and right now Prairie View is sitting in the number 8 spot, but only one team is really out of the race, and that's
Mississippi Valley Delta.
Mississippi Valley,
that's
valid.
Solid win yesterday, so And then what's interesting, to your point, Professor Drew, is in these matchups, even when you look at the top 4 or 5 teams, and the next segment 4 or 5 teams, when you've seen these crossover games, if you would have it, it's also just the margin of victory. These games have been close. Even when you see somebody at the top of the conference and the bottom, for example, the Prairie View win over Southern, probably the best win in terms of a team in the lower ranking over a top team this season. But you are not necessarily surprised that Prairie View could play that level of basketball. They've lost literally 4 or 5 games by 2 or 3 points at the end of the game. Many times that was because their inability to knock down free throws. So there are little things that you see in and out. So it's going to be fascinating as you talk about going in this tournament, just how close these teams are, not necessarily in terms of record, but if you're really looking closely in terms of how the talent and how they play each other in those styles of play.
Yeah, be very wary of Prairie View. I said they had to go 2-0 this past weekend, Saturday, Monday. They accomplished it over Grambling and Southern. Hey, this is a scary team that just have Prairie View and Texas Southern, the Texas two-step. They always hit that something going into February, going into March over the past few seasons. So, we know that both coaches get their teams primed and ready going into the tournament. So those 2 teams, Texas Southern and Prairie View, are super dangerous going into February.
Yeah, and when you switch over to the MEAC, so we can get rid of our SWAC biases on this show, we like to cover both conferences. The question is, can Norfolk hold off Central? That's question number 1.
Yeah.
If Norfolk holds off Central, just like the Jackson State women, is their resume good enough to get them off of that 16 line and get them to possibly a 15? Those are the 2 questions that I have coming out of the MEAC, especially if Norfolk wins the MEAC.
They should be a 21
the fact that they were in the tournament last year. That's not supposed to carry over, but if your program becomes that prominent consistently, sometimes that does get you off that opening round game and to some degree even off that 16 seed as you talk about. So it'll be fascinating to see what that looks like. The question I also have, Drew, to make sure we talk a little bit about this MEAC SWAC. We talked about Norfolk Southern. What is another MEAC SWAC matchup, or a couple of them you'd like to see? And I'll ask that, Charles, another one you would see also before we go to this break. What are some of the teams that you'd like to see at the top of the SWAC versus the MEAC outside of what we talked about already, Norfolk State and Southern?
If you were to give me a doubleheader, obviously you mentioned Norfolk Southern, but I think the good prelude to that game 1 of that should be Central and possibly a good Jackson State team or Texas Southern. Either one of those teams. And I say a good Jackson State team because the Jackson State we saw in January, I do not want to see. The Jackson State that we've seen in February, I could deal with that Jackson State team. And then of course Texas Southern has been the They're the next best team in the SWAC, and we know what they did last year. So I would say probably Central Texas Southern will be my first matchup. But if Texas Southern doesn't show up, give me Jackson State.
Oh, I like that. Remember, that was the opening round game a couple of years ago when you saw Central and Texas Southern play a game that took you all the way back to the NIA days when you had the District 29, where they played up in a quarterfinal matchup. Central won it then. Texas Southern got a little payback a couple of years ago. So, Charles, what's another matchup that you would like to see besides the Southern Jaguars? As Professor Drew said, what would be the prelude to that game if it's the bottom matchup? Who do you have opening it up?
The trilogy. I want to see Texas Southern and North Carolina Central. I want to see Rocky 3. That's what I want to see. That would be the precursor to Southern Norfolk State. Very interesting that you mentioned Jackson State in there, AD Drew, because they have won 4 in a row. They've done it in a different manner, with someone being the lead and somewhat different being the lead scorer in each of those games. Javis McKinnis has been out, Jackson State's leading rebounder and scorer the past couple of games, but they got a little something going over there. I'm not sure what it is, and you have to look at it who they beat. I think they started off with UAPB and Mississippi Valley, but this was impressive wins. They had lost early when they made the Florida trip. They got a little bit of payback this past weekend over FAMU and Patron Cook.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, just since we're having a little fun. What about a Howard Bison Grambling State game? Would be interesting.
Howard Prairie View. I was going
to say Prairie View. I was going to say Prairie View Morgan State would be entertaining in there. South Carolina State, maybe an Alcorn State. And then, just for fun, we're going to do Jackson State, Tennessee State. We'll throw that in there.
Why not?
Right. We'll do a FAMU, North Carolina A&T to get these old routes.
We've seen FAMU A&T.
Yeah, we'll let Fred see if he can organize it to get it going.
Toss up,
yeah. Never mind. All right, we'll be right back after this break, and we'll get into the closing segment as well. Get into some tidbits here and there about some the mid-major games, as we like to call it, out of CIAA, SIA games, maybe some games to watch, and then we'll put a pin on it. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Be back with us as we get into the fourth quarter. Close out strong for you.
The top HBCU programs in the nation come to Montgomery, Alabama's Riverwalk Stadium this May 11th through 14th for the Black College World Series. The best Black college baseball teams in the NCAA Division II and the NAIA will battle for Black baseball's ultimate prize. Games will be streamed live at www.mybcsn.net. Tickets are available now online at www.blackcollegechampionships.com.
You see, Head & Shoulders has a scalp shield technology, protects against flakes, even between washes. It's never not working.
Kind of like us. Number 15?
Never not working.
I don't like this one.
Me neither.
Let's get out of here.
Head & Shoulders scalp shield, never not working.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
The analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Professor Drew and Professor Bishop. given to you hard and heavy. Let's get in here. What's some tidbits? What's some things out there? Let's give some love to what we call the mid-major programs, those NCAA Division II NIA programs, CIAA, SIAC. I know CIAA is my understanding. This is the last week of basketball as they get into their tournament. So before we dive into the tournament, any games we should keep our eyes on this week, Professor Drew, in terms of CIAA?
Looking at the CIAA schedule, and one thing about it, since they get it down to the end, we've got a lot of action that you can talk about on Thursday show, Doc, as all 12 teams will be playing tomorrow night in the CIAA. Games of note that I want to watch out for: Elizabeth City and Virginia Union on the men's side. That's those are two of the top programs on that side of the conference. I think that's going to be the best of the Wednesday night matchups that we have in the CIAA there, Doc. So I think Elizabeth City. Excuse me, I just lost my page. Yeah, Elizabeth City and Virginia Union. That should be a good game on Wednesday night. Switching over to the SIAC, Doc, they're playing a lot of the games Thursday. A lot of these games will be going on at the same time that you are on the air on Thursday. Not your big household names as far as your top teams in the MEAC. Thursday night is more of a taking care of business. I said MEAC in the SIAC. Thursday night is more of taking care of business in the SIAC. Benedict takes on Albany State. You're going to expect Benedict to win that game. Miles takes on Kentucky State. You're going to expect Miles to win that game. Morehouse takes on Allen. You're going to expect Morehouse to win that game. I said that. So that's more of a taking care of business night in the SIAC. One game of note, and I know we was trying to stay on Wednesday and Thursday, but this Saturday is basketball homecoming at Steelman as they take on William and Carey College, another top team in the Southern States Conference. And that game will be broadcast right here on the Black College Sports Network. And yours truly will be on the microphone on play-by-play of that particular game. So just had to throw that out there. Make sure you tune in to the Black College Sports Network. That's 2:00 and 4:00 Eastern Time, 1:00 and 3:00 Central. Men's women's doubleheader at Steelman College.
AD, I just had a question. What are the Rest College women doing?
If you give me a second, I'll pull it up. I know they won this weekend.
Yeah, as you pulling it up, let me get.
They still only have one loss, 2 losses.
Yeah, as you pulling it up, let me get some love to Xavier in the Red River Athletic Conference. They're 17-5, 12-1 in the race, and that's in the East Division. They've won 11 straight. When you talk about these teams rolling, Paul Quinn, even on the women's side, is solid as well. They won 3 straight, 14-8, 6-5. But really, it's on the men's side when you talk about Paul Quinn, as they've really rejuvenated their program. They won 6 straight, but they're 21-1, 10-1. Not eligible for postseason, man. It's unfortunate they are not. Maybe they'll get in one of those independent small tournaments outside of the NIA tournament, because what they've done this season, they should have some postseason play. So it's gonna be fascinating to watch on that. What do you have on Russ?
Russ women, they are now 22-2 there, Dr. Cavil, and they defeated Fisk on yesterday. Oh, here's a matchup. It's not until Saturday, but this is a matchup. They take on Philander Smith on Saturday. That's at 2:00 on the women's side. So that'll be another game that you definitely want to keep your eyes out for. We'll kind of get into that game a little bit more on Thursday there, Doc.
I like that. I like it.
Shout out to the Bearcats.
What kind of things out there? You got some love for Rust in there. Well deserved, I might add. It wasn't like you just throwing them a bone. They actually playing some good basketball.
Playing some good basketball.
Yeah. Oh, hold up before you get into that, Doc. as of Sunday, these were the teams that had double-digit win streaks in HBCU basketball. Morehouse men had 12 as of Sunday. Jackson State women had 12 as of Sunday. You just mentioned Xavier, and I believe all three of these teams won on Monday, and Miles was at 13 in a row. Miles men were at 13 in a row. So those were the teams coming into this week that had double-digit win streaks.
Woo-wee. Some teams out there, keep your eye on that. Charles, what are some other things before we close it out that we should keep our eyes on? I know it's a big weekend coming up on basketball, but there's some sports outside of that. What you have for us?
No doubt. We got the 2022 Swac Indoor Track and Field Championship. That will be taking place at the Birmingham Crossplex February 17th and 18th. And you can follow the live results on swac.org.
Good deal. Let's check that out and see where they go from there. Thank you for listening to Inside HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. Again, thank you for listening to Dr. Will's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. Guesting in today was AD Drew. Every Tuesday and Thursday. We'll be right back this Thursday at 6 o'clock. We'll look forward to you this Thursday as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's DrKenyattaCavil on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Follow Charles Bishop, follow AD Drew, follow BCSN, my JBN, my BCSN. Download it. Make sure you check out Drew as he gives the homecoming festivities and calling out the game. That should be exciting. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, one on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Keep your eyes on Charles Bishop. They're dropping a bunch of content on pregame. They even got some nuggets when they went out to, you can't say the country. They were out at the ranch. Green Bay, you got to be from Texas to understand ranch life. Even my grandfather, the Cavils ranch, we got a ranch. There's something about being on the ranch in Texas. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Drew?
Of course.
Charles?
Lecture.
Dismiss.
We'll holler.